He produced the first 2 Coldplay albums, and he's getting approached by me, who he hasn't seen for 10 years, on the cop at half time, saying, "Would you do a record for us, mate?"
And he just says yeah.
And he said yeah. If you do something, do it big.
I get the vibe, I get the friendliness, and Liverpool brings that.
We should just be saying to people, if you're into music, this is where you should be.
Did your dad ever tell you to get a proper job?
He did. He kind of like, I don't think he ever believed I had the proper job.
Now, I came to Liverpool in 2003 with the lure of the city, but the fact that Liverpool was just awarded the capital of culture. I came here to August 2003.
Yep.
And I know you're into culture, arts, music.
So yeah, I mean, I was involved in writing the capital of culture bids, which it was over about a 2-year period. I mean, it's such a long time ago now, but there was a small team of us who basically put the bid together and managed the whole processes around it, like working with, making sure that the various communities around the city were involved in it and stuff. So
was that the late 90s then?
It was, I think it was like 2001, 2002. It was a long process where there was anyone could bid for it. Then they whittled it down to like 6, I think it was in the end, and then you submitted a bigger bid, and you went down to London to meet people, and you did all sorts, and the judges came down to Liverpool a few times, so it was a long process, and so I was involved in that part of it, and then obviously like everyone made up when we got it.
What did you think the chances were when you were writing it?
Do you know what? I was stupidly optimistic. I don't think anybody else on the team really thought we had that much of a chance. I'm not sure even Bob Scott, who led on it. I think the intention really was Liverpool at that point was seen as something of a basket case, really, like nationally and internationally. We'd had all, for various reasons, there being political issues and things, and Thatcher had basically tried to kill the city, and Thatcher, just the cabinet papers
in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the cabinet papers released, where she basically said, "Can we not just leave them to die? Liverpool just cut them loose." So there was all that, and then suddenly, for the first time in a while, I think we had stable political leadership and things, and ironically now, Europe came to our rescue. Because we were so poor, Liverpool was entitled to like the largest kind of structural funding that the European Union allowed.
Was this after being awarded it?
No, this was before. So I think we got this in about the mid-90s. We got the first chunk of European money, and that kind of meant some physical changes were possible in the city because we had this big chunk of money, and so we were changing. We were becoming some of their. Liverpool, when I was growing up, was physically like a bit of a mess. Like, lots of it been left to ruin, and loads of abandoned buildings and stuff. People had left the city because there was no jobs. So it was fairly, it was still a lovely city to live in because it's a great place to be. But actually, there was an awful lot of physically it looked awful, and there was an awful lot of like poverty and demoralisation amongst people. The European money started to make some of those physical changes, like the waterfront and things, and then in 2008 the arena. So loads of big physical stuff was happening, and there was a bit more confidence about the city, I think, and great music and stuff coming through. And it was the bid for capital culture allowed us to kind of bring all that together and say, do you know what, like people may look down on us at the moment, but like look at all this amazing, like we've got these amazing theatres, we've got this amazing music, we've got these amazing buildings, like that would be the envy of any other city in the world. And so that bidding for it, I think, coalesced some of that positivity really, and it come together, and then we obviously did a great job of selling it to the judges, and as part of the message was, like, we're not the finished product, but we're working towards it, and if we get this will be a massive step. This will be a massive boost. I guess
we're never the finished product, are we? We're always evolving. No. Even now, you could say there's another 10, 20, 30-year plan for Liverpool.
Yeah.
If you could get a plan and stick to it. But it keeps surprising me, because I came to Liverpool because there was a lure about the name. Okay, then maybe there's a connection with me being Irish, and so many Irish people do love the city, but I feel never have I heard a bad word, no matter where I travel globally, about Liverpool as a name. Whether it is because of the football and music, there's probably the two biggest things. But even before Liverpool got the capital of culture and got to spend all of that money, whether I have a blinkered vision or I just think that Liverpool as a name has always shone bright, and it's like Ireland as a nation. I'm proud to be Irish. There's been lots of things in Ireland that you wouldn't want repeated a second time, or you respect the history, but you don't want it. You do know that it went through a difficult time. So I couldn't see, although there may be derelict buildings, I just saw the Liverpool as a place that has so much to give.
Yeah, no, but I think there was lots of studies done at the time and during and after capital culture, and I think in the pre-capital culture period there was a lot of, you're right, internationally Liverpool's reputation was still quite strong. Nationally it wasn't great, and then I think what big events like capital culture did, and why Liverpool's persisted with the strategy of trying to have big events like Eurovision last year, is because what it does is draws the eyes of the world to the city. Hopefully it brings people here, but that massive media attention makes people go like, God, isn't Liverpool a gorgeous city? And then people come here. I mean, it happened last year with capital culture. People have come here and are like, I never realised.
Eurovision.
For Eurovision, people have gone, I never realised Liverpool was this, like, this, I mean, Jurgen Klopp did it. When Jurgen Klopp, some of my mates interviewed Jurgen Klopp this first summer he was on the American tour, this first summer tour with Liverpool. And he said, no one tells you Liverpool's beautiful. He said, I live by the sea, like I live by the river, right by the woods, everything is, it's a great place to be. And I think, so a lot of the messaging around those big events is like, come to Liverpool, meet the people are amazing. There's, amazing attractions.
I was at a restaurant last night, and this American lady served us, and she travelled to 40 countries in 2 months with her brother. They did a hop of the world. Liverpool was the 7th place that she visited. When she finished her tour, she came back and she settled here. And I think if that's a message that for what Liverpool represents, it has to represent the people. And that was the lure for me. Yeah. Because I just got hooked in. Good friends. I get the vibe, I get the friendliness, and I guess that creates opportunity for me. I think opportunity isn't the city. For me, opportunity is the people that you meet along the journey.
Yeah,
and Liverpool brings that.
It's it's really why I've never left. I did 1 year of study away from Liverpool. I did an MA in Sheffield, and I did bits of work in London, but I've never actually seen the reason to leave, like, because just because family, friends, just generally the people, and because my passion's been music, and like Liverpool's always just been like incredibly exciting musically. So yeah, I'm Irish technically. I was I'm an Irish citizen, but like I love Ireland, but I can't think of anywhere else I'd want to live really other than Liverpool. It's nice to visit great cities like New York. I love going back to Ireland and stuff, but why else would you want to live?
Was music a passion of yours from early years, or?
Yeah, so I grew up in Bootle, born initially by Marsh Lane in Bootle, and then we got knocked down for to build the Strand, and we moved a bit by the Gyro Bank, but it was. So I grew up in a household where it was Irish music only, and then my sisters started getting into bands like the Osmonds and all that sort of stuff. And then I think it was just I always had older mates, and they were playing other music, and so I got into music quite early. And then punk came along when I was like 15, and I just loved it. And was lucky enough to be able to go. So John Peel was on the radio, like a famous Liverpool world DJ, playing all this great music. So you could buy the records in Probe Records, which was on Button Street, just by Matthew Street, and then there was a great club called Eric's where all the big names played, and I was Roger Eagle, God love him, Roger and Pete, who owned the club, started doing this thing on a Saturday, like a matinee performance. So you could go and see, like the first one was XTC, but I saw the Clash there, the Specials, or Joy Division there.
So you're going as a spectator?
Yeah, 15, 16, going to see these bands, and then because I look quite old, I look probably like not that dissimilar now. I could go in the evenings when it could. It was just harder in those days, no money, and you had to get back home from town and stuff, so it was normally trying to get the last bus. So
wasn't there fake IDs? I remember my mum got me a fake ID when I was 15.
Not back when I was 15. I'm talking like I was 15 in 78 or something, so no, there was none of that. They let you in. It was like a nice club. So so that's kind of where it all started, and then seeing all these amazing bands, and then.
Were you playing music at that stage?
Do you know what we had? We had a couple of us, because the ethos of punk was anyone could play. So I remember a few of us sitting in my little freezing cold bedroom in Captain's Lane, like with like cobbled together instruments, and we were rubbish. So I think I realised when I was about 18 that I was never going to be a musician, but I loved to write. And the music bible then, if you were like serious about music, was the NME, like a big music magazine, which was like the tastemaker of the day, and was selling like of course 1 million copies every week or something around then. And in a stupidly naive way, I just wrote a letter, I wrote a review and sent it in to like NME, which in those days was in Carnaby Street, and like it would never happen now, but like I know it was a fella called Paul Denoyer, who was another local writer, who was one of the editors at NME.
What did the letter say?
It just said really liked the review, and it was handwritten, and he said really liked the review, do us reviews of some local bands, and so that was it. I started my first few NME reviews that were published were still handwritten, so Paul or somebody at the NME offices must have written.
You were actually starting to review bands?
Yeah, getting paid for reviewing bands when I was like 18, 19, which was like, yeah, it was like, I was like still living at my mum's, just finished school and was starting university, and was reviewing like bands. And so in that first summer it was people like Black who went on to have big hits.
So were you hoping to go on to some sort of journalism or some sort of writing, or what was your plan then?
I do you know what I was, but I had a terrible, I went to a school which probably wasn't the best in Bootle. It was like a comprehensive, and I think my only careers advice when I said I wanted to be a journalist was like I was kind of like dismissed, and it was, I think the line was that there's a lot of sitting around in pubs as a journalist, which as though that was a bad thing, but like
that sounds
yeah, but
there's a lot of journalists out there.
So you know, again with hindsight, I wish I'd kind of done more research and found out what you needed to do, because it would have helped. But I just
so you're interested in music,
yeah,
and you're interested in journalism,
yeah, and
you just put it together and thought I'll start reviewing. Or
it sounds very well planned, like when you say it like that, but it wasn't well planned.
It was pure accident. Like a master plan.
It was just a pure accident. I just, do you know what? I must have had I must have just thought, because there was no NME.
But did you think there was money to be made out of when you started writing reviews?
I didn't really. I just wanted to see my name in print, I guess. But then they started paying me, which was like, that was like, what, you're paying me for going to see bands? I'm getting on guest lists, and I'm getting free records sent to me. That was it. But I was just a kid. I mean, I was a very, very naive, like 18, 19-year-old. I mean, I'd never left Bootle. When I started university, I stayed in Liverpool.
When were you studying then university?
Yeah.
Sorry, you studying journalism?
No, because of all that bad advice. It was a bit of, I was kind of like wayward in a quiet way when I was like 16, 17. I'd like discovered girls, because we had sixth form, let girls in after being an all boys school, so I was distracted by girls and had my first serious girlfriend. We were dead poor. I had a job in a pub, I had a job in a shoe shop. I was just trying to, you know, so I kind of got told by the teachers that I was going to fail all my exams because I wasn't paying any attention, which I wasn't. And then my mum, God love her, got a grip of me just in the second year of sixth form and said, you've got to like get your head down. And I kind of taught myself the last, I just like worked 3 or 4 months just teaching myself and that. And so as a consequence of all that, because everyone thought I was going to fail, I didn't really pay the attention to degrees and stuff, and I just...
Did you fail?
No, I passed. I got really good results, but only again because of my mum. And then yeah. So I didn't really apply. I applied for a degree course which I started and immediately hated because I hadn't put any thought into it, and managed to kind of blag my way onto a different course instead, economics and economic history, and did that. And so yeah, all everything I've done is by pure accident, to be honest. But yeah, and it's...
I admire your determination to stay at school, because by the time I was 14 I had a similar path. There was high hopes for me to do well. I was quite good at English and maths, and after getting found out that I had written over 100 fake notes of getting out of school, and them days there was piles of paper up, I had to sit down with my parents and ask or demand permission to sort of leave school or take a different path. But you managed to at least stick it out. It is
down, and do you know what? It's kind of bizarre that it's down to mum and dad, because my mum and dad were farmers in Ireland, and I think left school at 14. So they had no academic stuff, but I think just knew that it was the best thing to do was to like try and get some exams and stuff. And that was a time when there wasn't many jobs around. The only jobs people got in Bootle was in the Gyro Bank or in the civil service. So it was
apart from maybe education as we know it, or what a school delivers, or university, I do think it's also about timing, and whether you may not want to pass your exams, your social skills, your emotional intelligence, all of that can be developed at school as well, other than just getting straight A's.
Yeah.
And it's also, university, some people who, like, if I was to show my path of how I've got to here, it was tough because I left school young. The ups and downs, I took on head first life in the fast lane. The school of life outside school, and to be fair, it was probably tough. Okay, I learned by my lessons, but there is something safe about sticking at school, getting through it, whether you're educated, however you see it, if you're an academic or not, and maybe going through the university to sort of grow up a bit or mature a bit and actually understand yourself, because at 18 you're just following the path of what you enjoy.
I was an idiot. I mean, it was,
who isn't?
Yeah,
and isn't it okay to be an idiot?
Yeah, but then also again, because it wasn't the best school, and I was quite a shy lad and stuff. So things like working in the pub and working in the shop all helped me a bit. But then I went to university and felt quite intimidated because other people spoke better than me, because I've always spoke with this accent and were confident standing up and speaking.
It's okay, we've got subtitles. We'll be fine.
And people who've been to good schools knew how to do that, like tutorial thing where you stand up and speak, and wasn't what I was used to. And it was only like later on that I worked out like none of them were any cleverer than me. In fact, a lot of them were nowhere near as clever as me, but they were just better tutored in how to present and stuff.
Yeah. More academic, but so when you went to uni, you kept doing your reviews.
So I was carried on writing for music papers really till the early 90s. There was a year or two off. I got really ill in the end of my second year at uni, like almost died and stuff. So that kind of derailed me for a bit. But then I actually got approached by NME.
Anything worth sharing?
Oh wait, no,
sounds like something.
I had undiagnosed Crohn's disease, which because they didn't diagnose it, I almost like literally was a few hours away from dying, and then so that's something I've lived with for 40 years, but it did set me back a bit, so I kind of led a quieter life, and then I was working. I had a job as an information officer just not far from here on Hardman Street in the Trade Union Centre, and I got a call from NME, a famous journalist called James Brown, who went on to set up Loaded and stuff, and become a media mogul. James rang me up and said, I remember you writing, we think there's something happening in Liverpool, would you write for us again? So then I started, it was the time of like dance music, house music was taking off. Bands like The Farm, The Lars, in Liverpool, Real People were all starting to get noticed. So then I had a mad few years writing about what was happening in Liverpool, particularly about doing all sorts of stuff and writing for Enemy, Mix Mag, ID Magazine, The Face, all these about music and culture in Liverpool, because Liverpool was like an amazing place at that time, all sorts of like incredible like things happening. And so I had a ball, yeah. I was like, it was in the middle of all that like creativity and chaos, you know. There was like things like just before Cream started taking off.
What year was this?
James. So like 89, 90, 91 was all, it was really exciting. You know, bands were having bits of success. Say people like there's great clubs like G Love happening just before Cream, but I was working with James Barton on other stuff they were doing. I was around all that, and then there was.
So at this stage, did you actually think, I'm now a journalist? When did you wake up one day and say, "What do you do for a living?"
Don't know if I ever thought that, to be honest. It was yeah, no, it was just nice seeing your name there, and obviously the money was nice, but it was I think because that was a really special time, I think, in Liverpool, because it was exciting, and I think a lot of music journalists at the time didn't quite get the importance of house music. I think a lot of them thought it was going to go away, and I loved it. I was living that lifestyle and going to clubs and stuff, and so I think being part of all of that. And
but did you mind if it was going away? Were you just living in the moment, thinking, I'm not sure, because it's really none of us know how to predict the future of what trends are going to be.
No, and I can't. No, I just loved it, and kind of got its importance, I think, and was just having a great time and meeting nice people, and yeah, just leading. I mean, it was with hindsight, I was leading probably a bit too much of a rock and roll lifestyle, because I was immersed in all of that, which was, you know, great fun. But
is that why you're still smiling?
No, yeah, not good for relationships type stuff and all that. But that, you know, it was I was a young man and like still a bit of an idiot and stuff, really, just having a ball. And you know, but lots of those people I met then are still friends, and it's that period's. I mean, it was great. It was great living through it, and but I think it's kind of shaped the rest of my life, really, certainly my career. But so yes, I mean, everyone I met then, I'm still like bands like The Farm and stuff are still my mates and still work with, and you know, people like Steve Lamach, who's my editor at NME, you know, he's like done radio stuff, and all, so all these people are still, you know, and it's one of the things I always tell young people is like just those networks, you know, it's kind of like don't be a divvy, like, because those people you meet and you're a divvy to, you're probably quite likely to bump into them again in 10 years, 20 years and stuff. So
one thing I knew about Liverpool when I came here, it was a big city but had a really tight sort of connection. Once you start to get to know people, everybody and everybody knows each other, and this is no different. No. I realised this is probably the biggest village that you'll ever go to.
So yeah, after that I was doing that stuff, and then I got offered a job at the University of Liverpool, who had the first Institute of Popular Music in the country, so like an academic way of looking at music. So I got that job there, so I was writing about country music in Liverpool and Irish music in Liverpool, did these small books for them. At the same time I was doing the NME thing, and then, you know, had various jobs, but it's always come back to music, really. So it was like, so I ended up doing DJing because like I had great records, because I was getting all these free records, and the one that always sticks in my mind is I was DJing at Labato, great little club, proper basement, sweaty club, yeah, and Peter Lee, who owned it, still around. He's got a bar in town, and he was foolish enough to give me a job DJing on Thursday nights, and on one of the nights Diggsy's band Smaller were playing, and Chris Griffiths and Tony Griffiths from the Real People came over and said, Kev, can our mates, like these lads from Manchester, can they get up and play? And I was like, yeah, like if Digsy's all right with it, fine. Like, yeah, because, you know, it means I had to DJ a bit less. And then, and it was, and he introduced me to Liam and Noel. And then the lad who was doing the lights was really annoyed because, like...
Liam and Noel is...
Liam and Noel Gallagher, yeah. David. And so the original Oasis lineup just did like a 20-minute set on Smaller's gear and they did Rock and Roll Star, Cigarettes and Alcohol. You know, they did like 4 or 5 of the tracks off that, of what became that first album, and that was purely because they were hanging out with Tony and Chris.
Had you had any idea how good they were?
Do you know what? I'm trying. It sounds like I'm being really wise after the fact here, but I can honestly tell you, I rang an A&R mate of mine the next day and said I saw this like amazing band last night, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like I've heard about them, not that fussed." And then, but then I did a fair bit with them then, because I did, because they knew people I knew, and I did an interview with them. Just as they did The Word on Friday night, the first TV appearance, I interviewed them at the studio in London on the Monday, and so I spent the day with them, and then for the magazine.
So you became friends, and then...
we've just...
Is that how you get introduced? So you became friends then and say, "Oh, come and do an article," or "I'm here." Do you all follow each other around?
It was a bit like someone, a magazine wanted to do something, they'd met me, so so I got the gig, and I think the editor of the magazine was happy with me to do it, and then... I'd stage managed them at the Crazy House after they got signed, because again, some lads, it was the Real People playing it, and Mark Robbo, who was working with them, said, "Would you stage manage the gig?" And I was like, what does that mean? And he went, "Just tell people to get on and off." And I said, "Okay." And then and do you know what, they were as good as gold, because normally when you want bands to go on early, they were the first on out of 3 bands, which sounds mad now. It was Oasis, followed by Rain, who were a local band, followed by the Real People. And I asked Noel if they'd go on at 9:30, and he was like, "Yeah, all right, Kev." And then I expected normally people disappear, and they didn't. They were on 9:30, did their half hour and got off. And yeah, no, so they spent a lot of time in Liverpool. They love Liverpool music. You know, Oasis love the Lars, they love Mick Heads, they love, you know, the Real People. Obviously loved the Beatles, so there was a big thing there, and they liked hanging out here. So yeah, so that
was in the late 90s then?
That was just, you know, I'm
mid-90s.
It was just as they were getting signed, so it's mid-90s, isn't it? So I think, yeah.
I know we discussed it at the start, but who took you in to do the writing then for the Capital of Culture? Was that through the same channels?
So I was working for the council as we had an agency called Merseyside Acme, which was, I think, the country's first creative industries development agency. It was when people didn't quite understand, obviously podcasts weren't invented, but they didn't understand digital content, or, you know, websites. Websites were quite new. People were excited if they had a website. You could only, mobiles were still that big a lot of the time, and you could only ring people on them. You couldn't do anything else. So people didn't quite get digital and creative industries. So we were a small team who got money from Europe again to basically support, the companies who were making this podcast. You know, it was working with, it was mainly website companies. There wasn't app developers then. It was web companies, designers, music companies. Anyone was creative, we were supporting them. And I also was managing a program around using creativity in communities to try and solve problems. So we got asked, as they were putting the bid team together, I got asked if I'd be part of that team, and we managed a community, a community creativity project we called Creative Communities, and Claire McColgan, who's now director of Culture Liverpool, Claire was involved in that as well. So we just got that, and then I ended up writing loads of music stuff for the bids and doing bits and pieces. But it was a long time ago. It was a really small team, and not always sure that everyone believed we'd get it, but it was amazing that we did. And I think it played a big part in transforming Liverpool.
So imagine you didn't get the Capital of Culture, because many people ask me, how big a part did getting the Capital of Culture and then billions of pounds or do you think without that Liverpool still could have managed the trajectory it was on?
We were on we did have a trajectory of like growth and renaissance. I think what capital culture did was just speed it up. I mean, with capital culture you don't actually get a load of money at all. It was more about what you can do and the money you bring in. And but I think it made Liverpool, made more people aware of the creativity that was in Liverpool. You know, the image of the city changed massively. And
was Liverpool one wrapped up with the capital culture? Was that something that was happening anyway?
That was happening anyway. So there was stuff like the arena, the new museum. So some of them were already happening, but then schedules changed to try and make it align with all that. But it was part of that. It was part of the overall process, but you know, undoubtedly it helped, and it brought, you know, I think there was a big evaluation done. It brought investment into the city. It's really hard for people who weren't here to remember what it was like, but like there was hardly any hotels. I mean, I remember a time when like artists, like musicians and DJs, had to stay at the Adelphi because there was nowhere else to stay. Nobody lived in the city centre because the city centre wasn't a particularly nice place.
I know people that still stay in the Adelphi.
I can't possibly comment, but it's, you know, it's just changed out of all recognition, and that played a big part in it. But you know, again, really sad that we've left Europe, because you know, European money did help an awful lot of what happened in Liverpool. It couldn't have happened without it, and so I think the key bit is we learned loads of lessons about, you know, you need big events attract like big audiences which spend a lot of money in the city, like keep that positive image of the city. The visitor economy becomes really important, and it's involving everybody, because there's no use having great events and everyone feels like they're excluded and it's just for visitors. So I think the key lessons were learned in 2008, which are still going on.
I do remember one of the other events. I probably remember it because my mum was here. It's twice she was here because of it was the Giants. Yeah. I remember it just put the city on the map, and millions of people on the streets, and the buzz and the excitement, and it was something that just included everyone, a bit like the Eurovision. It encompassed all ages. Yeah,
and that all goes back to the capital culture stuff. But then I think, so I was doing it helped me to do a couple of things which, again, without capital culture maybe might not have happened. So one of them was probably more up your street. One of them was around setting up Baltic Creative, but like the other one was more my passion. So I was working for this, I was heading up this agency called ACME, the Creative Industries Support Agency, and the plans for 2008 were there, and musically there was a community-based project called Street Waves, which was taking young musicians internationally, which was good. But as big set-piece music events, there was MTV Awards Europe were coming to Liverpool at the arena, which is a great coup for the city. But my view was, it's brilliant that it's happening in Liverpool. You see nice shots of the waterfront, but they come in, they set up, they shoot the show, and then they go. And it's, you know, there's no lasting legacy that Paul McCartney was doing Anfield, which again, great tribute to our musical heritage. But my question was, what about what's happening now? So because of the position I was in, I had access to money, so I bid to do a music event in 2008, which would showcase Liverpool music and businesses. And it was one of those occasions when I remember getting the offer letter saying, yeah, your bid's been successful, and thinking, I've actually got to do this now. Like, it was me just being grumpy. And so because it was European money and stuff, you have to go through all the process of, you have to do a tender. We did a tender to look for someone, because I realised I didn't have the capacity to do it, and the little team I worked with didn't. So we went out to tender, got Dave Pitcherlingy, and Dave won the tender, and the first two Sound Cities were run from our little office.
So this is where Sound City was born, really?
So I brought Dave in to run it. We did.
Who thought of the name?
Probably, do you know what, anything creative, probably Dave. And then and we ran it. We just kind of again a wing and a prayer. You can't give the
credit to everybody else for everything. You didn't just.
Do you know what? I think I did.
It was just me. I just wrote a few letters. I just did a few.
I did a bit,
I thanked my mum for my education, and I thanked this. And you know what? I've just floated through.
So it's finding good people in it, and then we you know, I mean, the Sound City's a big beast now, but like I mean, the stories the first year or two, you know, it was on most festivals are the same, a wing and a prayer. We were making it up.
So it started through some funding.
Dave pretended he knew what he was doing, but I don't think he did. He's just always very business savvy. So we got money to run the conference bit of it. It was about bringing businesses to Liverpool, and it's kind of like where we talked about before. My view was always, if you get people here, they see how amazing it is, and lots of music businesses hadn't been back to Liverpool. So we did a conference, and then on the back of that, Dave set up a very small music festival the first year, you know, a couple of 2 or 3 venues over 2 nights, and it worked. And my second year was bigger. Then I got moved into another part of the council, well, out of the council into a thing called Liverpool Vision, and Dave just took Sound City and ran with it and grew it into what it is. So that's, you know, that is down to Dave and the people he's worked with. So it's, and it again.
Have you got any numbers Have you got any numbers where economically what Sound City brings to the city, or whenever you're sort of explaining to people the value of it? Because a lot of people know the names, know the brand, but maybe don't actually get the value of this for a city.
We did do it early on, you know, I've forgotten. It is always, it does, you know, it brings people in from outside the city, and some of that conference stuff, you know, you can't, some businesses I know have settled in Liverpool because they come to Sound City and gone, well, we like it here, or they've, so it's, but like, I think the big things from Sound City is it's grown and it's part of a brand, you know, there's a recognisable music event in this, you know, it's one of the many, you know, we've got Africa OEA and Irish Music Festival, there's lots of great things Cream are now doing on the waterfront, but Sound City's been there since 2008 now, and then Dave's also taken, you know, branched off and done Modern Sky record label, which has been incredibly successful, which is great for Liverpool artists like Jamie Webster he's got and stuff. So it's one of the things I'm really proud of, and it was, as I say, it was me just being a bit stubborn and stamping my foot and going like, what's happening, why aren't we showcasing Liverpool music properly in 2008? And it was definitely one of the better things that I did.
Is there a capacity in the city to do big events like this? Is there certain, because logistically obviously you just can't rock up every weekend and take over big areas, and is there a certain plan where you think that a city can hold so many of these events per year? Because I just think that it's great, and why do we not do more of them?
Do you know what, there has been a plan, and it's like, so we set up, Culture Liverpool set up a thing called LIMF, Liverpool International Music Festival, partly on the back of the success of big events, and partly because Matthew Street Festival had become like quite a difficult event to manage, because it meant people were just coming into the city centre, and it was busy, and young people were getting drunk and stuff. So it was partly as a way of like, we need something that takes away from that, and we had this. So a lovely greenfield site, Sefton Park, great music, but I think through events like LIMF, other events that went on, there's been short-lived events, other events have come in. It's actually shown outside promoters that Liverpool is a city that you should be doing stuff in. There's an audience here and there's a great site. So, you know, Let's Rock was here for a few years, Fusion was here for a few years, Cream, Live Nation have now done Cream on the waterfront for 4 or 5 years on the Pierhead site. Vince Power came in and did the Irish event there, the Fesh, 1 year. Cream are moving to Sefton Park this year, and with the big Jamie Webster concert. So I think we've shown that we're a city that actually welcomes events, some of which are self-produced, like Africa OEA, which have been going for 25 years, I think. But now we're also showing to outside promoters that we're an attractive place to come. You know, they'll have a good events, good audiences.
What about a young musician? I'm saying young, it can be any age, but someone that wants to be a success someday, but wants to come and hone their skills. And is Liverpool a place that's good for them to come and settle and network like you have done? Or
I'm going to say yeah, aren't I? But no, I do honestly believe, and I think that's why loads of people who come here to study stay, because it's water, like music just seeps out of Liverpool, doesn't it? It's yeah, I mean, there's the structures, like we run one through Culture Liverpool. We run a thing called Lymph Academy, which is managed by a mate of mine, Yawa Wusu, and that's had a great track record of producing people who've gone on to success, like most recently Michael Aldag, but Jalen Ngonda, Tonya, who's just had success with 3 Beat Records, but there's loads of Pizza Girl.
Is there a limit to the amount of people?
So that's a small one, but there's other talent development programs round, and which all do good stuff. And then I think there's a really supportive ecology and environment here of people who want to do stuff and work with each other. And so I don't think there's many better places to be. If you said before about Liverpool being a village, and if you're a musician who wants to work with other people and find like-minded people, or not even like-minded people who you can do like really weird collaborations with, Liverpool is probably easier to work in and easier to find people than most other cities, and loads and loads of great venues due to passionate people who stick with it even when times are hard, like now.
Definitely is a place that's down to earth. Shares similar values. There's hard work that runs through the veins of the people here as well. Yeah,
and there's loads of great success stories.
We've talked about Liverpool history, and a huge part of Liverpool history, and to be fair, a history that people will know globally is Hillsborough, and I know that's had a big impact in your life, but you've also been involved musically.
Yeah, so when it was 2008 again, when Steve Rotherham, who's now the Metro Mayor, he was the Lord Mayor of Liverpool, and again, big Liverpool fan, and was closely connected to the Hillsborough families and stuff. So he came up with the idea of doing a single to raise money, but also to raise awareness of that the battle was still going on. It was a brilliant idea. So I got a call initially, and again, I have to be honest, I kind of was like obviously Red's a big supporter of the Hillsborough campaign and stuff, but I think my first conversation with Steve was like, I can't get involved in something that's going to be like a terrible cover version of something, and he was like, no, it's got to be credible. So it was, again, you talked about contacts, so I rang people I knew. So Peter Hooton from the farm, we've been involved in a lot of the Hillsborough work anyway, and we got John Power from Cast involved. Mick Head was there, and so we just and I think the most bizarre bit about all of this is we needed a producer. You need a producer to do a record. So we decided, after that initial conversation in the Lord Mayor's, the Lord Mayor's got a very fancy room with a lovely fireplace in the town hall.
I've had the privilege of being in that room.
Yeah, so when it's an important meeting, so Steve has invited us there. So I took my mate Phil with us. We went down there and did that, and then we decided we were going to do Fields of Anfield Road, song from the match, and then we needed someone to produce it. Got someone to offer us, Paul and Tim Speed had offered us Elevator Studios to record it, but we needed a producer. The only producer I knew, there was Ian Brody who couldn't do it for some reason, and then there was a lad called Ken Nelson who had known, he was a friend, he was my ex-girlfriend's friend's boyfriend and now husband, and but I'd lost touch with Ken, but I'd seen him at the match, so I kind of knew the area he sat in on the Kop, and this is true. And so it was a Chelsea game, remember, half time. I went looking for him, and so looked around the area of the Kop where I thought he was, and then couldn't see him. And me and my mate were just walking back up to our seats, and there he is. I go, Ken. He goes over, and I said, Ken, he must have just thought I was like mad, and he was just like, I said, we're doing this single, Ken, to raise money like for Hillsborough and raise awareness. And he said, I said, would you be up for it? He went, yeah, of course. And so I said, like, oh, we'll go back now, but like, give us your number and I'll speak to you tomorrow. And he said, I can do. He said, I'm working with Chris Martin and Natalie Imbruglia next week, but the week after that I can do it. And so I was like, okay. And I should have said, like, so Ken Nelson was is a top producer. He produced the first 2 Coldplay albums, and he's getting approached by me, he hasn't seen for 10 years, on the cop at half time, saying, would you do a record for us, mate?
And he just says yeah.
And he said yeah. And so then we rang him and explained what it was, and obviously when he knew more that it was professional thing really. And so we did the record the following week. Steve Rotherham got like the ex-players were meeting that one day, so we got them to come down to like, and the families, some of the families came down, and so we did this record with Ken producing it, John Power singing a lot of it, Peter singing on it, Mick doing a bit, and we put it out, and it was kind of a bit like on a wing and a prayer again. So it got top 20. I think if we'd had more organisation around it, we could have done better. I got Dave again, same thing about networks. I got Dave Pitchelingy to put it out on a record label he had, so we didn't have to set one up. Chris Meehan, our mate from Centric Music, did all the boring digital stuff that you have to do with releases. And but it got to 15, 14 or something. And but what it did do was raise awareness of the whole, like the Hillsborough fight was still going on. Mm-hmm. And that was the year when so that year at Anfield for the Hillsborough Memorial Service, like the attendance was massively up. It was like 30,000 as opposed to 5 or 10 the year before. And it's when Andy Burnham made his speech and got shouted down and stuff, which started the inquiry. Like how much of that is due to the single and stuff, don't know, but it certainly played a part in getting it back on that broader agenda. And then 2012, Steve come back to us saying to do something, and again it was around the inquiry and everything, and so we decided to do He Ain't Heavy because it'd been the song that Bill Kenwright had played at Goodison, with the boy and the girl with the red and the blue shirts on and stuff. So we did that, and it was Keith Mullen from The Farm got Guy Chambers to produce it because Guy had done some work at Lipper where Keith was, and then so it was kind of the same team led by inspired by Steve, who kind of was up told everyone we were going to get Christmas #1, and we were all like, nah, that's not going to happen, and because you're up against X Factor and stuff. But it was like just an amazing team. Like the lad who did this social media expert came in and did that for nothing. We got through the contacts of Guy Chambers and everyone else, and people wanting to get on board with it, which was obviously a good thing. You got like Paul McCartney actually came on, did a bit on it. Robbie Williams was on there. All these big names were on this single, and we had this great social media campaign. And again, it kept the fight around the Hillsborough campaign, and the fact that there still hadn't been justice for the families. It kept that very much in the public eye, as well as raising money. And it beat the lad from X Factor whose name I can't remember. He was very he was very good about it really, and we got the Christmas #1 for which again it was driven by Steve. He was just once you start getting into social media and stuff, I'm lost. But it was like there was a great team of people around it.
We touched on before the Baltic Creative, but can you just explain what the Baltic Creative is or how it came about, because it's a big part of Liverpool now as well?
Yeah, it's bizarre to think Baltic, and I keep reading things where people are saying the Baltics, one of the most exciting places to be in the UK or best places to live, and
for a specific sector.
No, just as generally as a place to be, because it's exciting. So so I got involved because when I was heading up this creative industries agency, Acme, it was based in Concert Square, and so everyone I talked earlier about how a bit earlier on when I was still doing journalism, everyone I knew, there was loads of exciting things going on, and most of those people had offices around Concert Square because it was a cheap place to be. Tom Bloxham and Urban Splash, it took over places and stuff, and people were, so it was a really buzzy place. By the time I was running Acme at this point, and it was like mid-2000, like 2006, 7 or whatever, a lot of those people had been forced out. That typical story of creative people making an area trendy and popular, and then the landlords and people around, you know, going, oh, this is a good place to be now, we'll open a bar, and then landlords going to creatives, well, we're going to raise your rent by 5 times, whatever. So creatives were getting forced out. And I was right in the middle of what that happening, and it was called it the rope walks then. So then I basically started making a case, and inspired by Jane Casey. So Jane Casey's a legendary Liverpool music icon. Like, she was music, and I saw her in a band big in Japan when I was a kid. She went on to work with Cream. She ran the comedy festival, and she now runs a venue in the Baltic called District. And Jane had always been agitating. She'd done some events in the Baltic when it was still just empty warehouses, and had this idea she was calling it the Independent District. So I kind of took the idea from Jane and started proving the case, and because it was public sector, and again because people back in 2005-6 didn't really understand the importance of creative industries still, because it's before the advent of everyone having loads of content on phones and stuff. I had to make the case for basically taking over an area, getting some buildings that would be purely for the use of the creative industries. So it's really boring when you tell it, but it took about 2 years of my life. I had to do a business case to prove that there would be enough creative businesses that would occupy spaces and would pay market rent. Then I had to do a business plan, which kind of shows how it could work. You know, you could work with the developer.
So this was before you actually had looked at the Baltic. This was a case
no,
to
so
find
the Baltic was always in the back of my mind, purely because Jane Casey had done some work down there with the Bay, some art installations, and it was the only kind of area close to the city centre which we knew had a lot of availability of space, and it would work. So for creative areas, I think it's always that proximity to city centres is always good, and so we started doing this. So I basically had to do a business case which said, don't want to work with developers because developers will inevitably try, and their job is to make money for themselves. So the model I worked with various consultants was to come up with a community interest company. So I had to bring the council on board with me. A lot of the property down there was owned by Northwest Development Agency, which is another Quango at the time. So I say, I'm telling you this in a couple of minutes, but it went on for about 3 years of my life, bringing people on board, getting creative industries to get behind the idea. And then eventually we did a bid, and we got money, I think it's like 6.5 million, something from Europe again, and from the Northwest Development Agency, to buy 40,000 square feet of property in the Baltic, often to use as a creative industries quarter. And that was the start of it. So the Baltic Creative CIC. So it was one of them where, so my argument on this was always the only way you can keep stuff for creative industries is by they have to own them, because if you own them as a developer, you're going to go, Baltic suddenly now is really trendy. I've got bars opening up, got a hotel there. I'm charging you 10 grand, I'm charging you 10 grand, I can charge you 30 grand.
Does that mean the CIC caps a rent and doesn't raise the rent?
The CIC can do what they want in terms. After the first few years, we had to charge market rent because it's public money. It had to wash its own face by the end of year 3. We brought in, again, fortunate in people you choose or meet. So we appointed Mark Lawler as the first manager director who really understood property. And it sounds weird now because the Baltic is so popular and there's so much there, extremely. But at that time there was nothing there really.
So where does the money go now when the rent comes in?
It's CIC, it goes back into it's surplus, it's not profit, so it goes back into supporting the businesses
to create more space
or to buy more spaces. So Baltic's, I mean, I can't claim credit for what happened afterwards. The board we put a board together, so we interviewed people for the board, and we got Mark in to run it, and then they grew that. I mean, I helped in the first year or two helping them find tenants and stuff because I had all my connections, but after that the board just grew and made it the success it is. But at the same time, Paul and Tim Speed, two brothers who I knew from being in a band together, they bought what's now Elevator, that big 2 warehouses, and they were developing that as creative space. So between this publicly funded one that I'd set up and the one that they were doing using their own money, suddenly started having all these creative businesses in there. I mean, it took a while because people still, which again sounds mad now, people still could get their heads around going, what's the Baltic? It's a bit of a dump, and it's not the city centre, is it? And people, that barrier, it took a while for people to get over that like physical 10-minute walk.
It's right next to Chinatown. I think it's because the roads are closed off.
Do you know, it's a bit of
if habit. A car doesn't go down it, it's pedestrian only. At night time, maybe people don't want to walk. But you're right, it's so close.
It was really hard at the start. So people like District, Jane Casey opened their venue there, and it was hard because people weren't used to going there. And then if they went and saw a gig, there was nowhere else for them to go after. Like the Baltic didn't have anywhere to go. So it took, do you know what? It took 4 or 5 years to become anything like it is now. But it was, and again, do you know what? I was always very bolshy about it, telling people it would work because I was making the argument and getting the money. And then it was one of those again where when you got it, when we actually bought the properties and stuff, you're thinking, I wonder if this is going to work. And it was, you know, but and it's great. The problem now is you've got.
No matter how sure you are of something, there's always a little.
Yeah, but
the monkey at the back.
So it was really successful. It's great, and you know, there's new stuff happening there, like box parks coming and stuff. But you know, Jacaranda just opened their other venue there and things. So it's still an area that's developing. I think the issue is around when you get so much residential, whether that impacts on the cultural stuff and the live music side of thing, which has been an issue, which, you know.
So the Baltic area, or the Baltic Creative is now still affordable for the creative people to continue and stay there.
They've expanded. They've got Baltic Digital over the road in another building. They've got other properties. I mean, I've lost touch with it over the last few years because I've been doing different things, but it's doing really. Whenever I go down to the Baltic to see bands or whatever, it does, you know, it's booming. Yeah, and it's probably the thing I'm most proud of, to be honest, because it was a 2, 3, 4 year slog to get it done, and I had to take a lot of people with me to make it happen. And
I think there's a lot that you could be proud of that we've already spoke about.
Yeah, but I think.
In saying that, one thing that you had an involvement was the Eurovision.
Yeah, which was like
every time I mention something, you keep smiling. Are you going to give me the modest? You're going to give me the modest version.
I honestly didn't have loads to do with it. It was I'm smiling because I think it took us all by surprise, because Eurovision was not something that I ever thought of. It wasn't really on my radar. I used to watch it as a kid with like. I'm from a big Irish Catholic family, so there'd be loads of us. So me and my sisters, it was a big deal when I was a kid because there wasn't really that many kinds of global TV things, and so we used to watch it. And then obviously it wasn't generally the sort of music I was in, so not really paid any attention. Then the opportunity came to bid for it, and it was down to Claire McColgan got it straight away, and so, you know, said we've got to like bid for it, and did the whole thing about making it really being a partnership with Ukraine. So I think it took us all by surprise how huge it was. So you started getting, like, there's academics who do a conference around it every year, so I spoke at their conference, but then it's all those learnings from the things you've talked about, like giants and capital culture. You know, if you do something, do it big and involve everyone. I think that was where Eurovision really worked. You know, we as a city and, you know, Culture Liverpool and all the partners transformed what Eurovision was. It wasn't just that, you know, the show and a few rehearsals. The BBC got massively behind it because they wanted to make a big deal out of it. And the team at Culture Liverpool are just amazing at doing event stuff. Like, they're just great at it. So my stuff was a lot of it around the fringes, really. I helped programme some music at various points on their main stage and stuff. We got young artists from the city to play. work with MVT and Lottery on one big night when we got Michael Aldegg on alongside like Girls Don't Sink and Ian Brody. So there was, but I think the big thing about it again was that everyone felt involved, and the feedback from people who came here, even like hardened media people came and like were saying, do you know what, we've had an amazing time here, we're going to come back with our families because it's such a big thing. So it was do you know what, it was a huge event which I think has done, you know, there's all the economic figures about how many millions it's brought into the city, but I think more it just showcased Liverpool as a music city. You know, it's that's my big message, is always come here any day of the week, any year, you know, any week, any time. There's always amazing music on, and I think Eurovision kind of cemented that and helped me, because I've been saying that for years, and I think people just get a bit bored of it and you say the same thing. Can I keep going? We should just keep pushing music city. Liverpool is a music city. We've got all these amazing things, and now it's happened. I think people get it.
The theme of Liverpool continuing and transforming to wherever it's going to go in the future is about bringing people to the city, a good group of people that you have working together, and getting more people with that energy like yourselves to work together on big projects. Is there any big projects you'd love to see coming to the city in the next few years, or how do we make sure that the population keeps growing, the economy keeps growing? Is there any one thing that you're trying to knock on the door or get into people's mindset?
Do you know what? Not at the moment. My thing is I'm never, again, I'm never about big ideas. My thing is always like steady, just go it. And I think what I'm pushing at the moment really is that association with music. Like it should be, everything that Liverpool do where possible should have music written into it, because it's what we do. I've just come out of a meeting this morning where we're talking about what we do next Christmas, and part of that should be like making sure there's some music activity around it, you know, not as well as, you know, there's great things like the Christmas markets and stuff, but why aren't we adding a layer of music on? So we've got, like, this summer we've got Taylor Swift coming as well, you know. So if you in the immediate future, I think we should just be saying, like, this is Liverpool, you know, summer of music in Liverpool, because we've got Sound City, Africa Oye, Cream on the Waterfront, Taylor Swift and Pink at the Anfield, whole load of things happening. It's like, we should just be saying to people, if you're into music, this is where you should be.
It seems that you have delivered some great projects and delivered quite big.
One of the biggest events where I have got some responsibility, and it was a bit of it could have been.
Try to be less modest now.
No, this isn't. It's so because of my music background, I got asked by LFC. So I'm a Liverpool fan season ticket holder. I've been going since like forever. When we got to the Champions League final in 2005, I knew somebody who knew somebody at the club who said, and there was going to be a fan zone, and they said, I got the call saying, can you organise some music for us? So the deal was, you got like 10 tickets and 10 flights, and so I said yeah, and thought it'd be great. I'm going to get to the Champions League final. Got some mates to agree to do it, and it was just a pain from day one, because I was like, musicians can be annoying at times, and they were just pestering me, and it's like, I don't know any more than you. We're just going there, we're doing a gig, and we're watching the match, and then it was just a series of calamities along the way to get there. And then we got there, did some of the gig, but then had to stop, because I think as it's famous stories now, Atatürk Stadium was not really equipped. Well, it shouldn't have ever been chosen as a final destination, because it was a stadium in the middle of nowhere with no road to it really. So there was 30,000 Liverpool fans outside this stadium on this like rubble, looking to be entertained, and we entertained them, which meant they all jumped on stage, so it got called off. And then I went off with a lad called Gary Bandit, or Gary Murphy, and I still don't know how, but I fell over, and I wasn't drunk because I had there wasn't that much beer around, and I blacked out and missed the game essentially, like, and so I was at the most famous European final ever and don't really remember anything about it, all down to a bunch of musicians. So yeah, so that's kind of, whenever I'm left in charge, that's why you should have good event managers and not someone like me who doesn't really know what I'm doing.
For someone who doesn't know what you're doing, you've definitely pulled off a lot of great things with a lot of great people. And again, it's people like you that I meet time and time again that brings a smile to my face. There's that energy. It's the core values that you have and so many people that I'm thankful to be friends with have. And the city of Liverpool should be delighted that you're part of the growth, the history and the future. And I've got one final question. Right. What's the future hold for you?
Do you know what? I have, again, I've kept saying throughout this, I've never had a plan, and I still don't have a plan. I'm nearly 61, but my dad worked till he was 85 as a caretaker, so I don't intend working that long, but I still think there's a bit left. I just think it's a really exciting time in Liverpool musically, particularly, and I just, yeah, there's the stuff I want to do. I think we're at a bit where we could really push Liverpool onto the next level of being seen as a hotbed of music industry. So there's stuff happening here like Modern Sky label, Centric Music, great, amazingly talented people and businesses here. And I think if we can just do a bit more, it's partly about messaging and stuff, about like saying, come here, there's amazing talent, but there's also this like support if you run the music business and stuff like companies like Jordan Code who are doing amazing music tech, they're at the top of that game. They're based over the road, and actually, ironically, in my old office in the trade union, what was the trade union centre. So I think I just want to kind of stay involved, and like I'm an old fella, but like I'm still working with young artists and stuff, as well as still working with people I knew 40 years ago, and that's kind of exciting, where you're seeing what's the next big names, as well as still talking to people who you knew 40 years ago, like Mick Head, who's making the best music of his career, and that's kind of really rewarding, and that's enough, I think.
So another 20 years of rewards coming up.
Do you know what? my dad did a proper job. He was a caretaker. That was, and he wanted to do that till 85. I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
Did your dad ever tell you to get a proper job?
He did. He kind of like, I don't think he ever believed I had a proper job. But in a nice way. He was never in a bad way. I think his job was. He always grafted. He was a stoker man on ships and stuff. He worked in chemical, he worked in all sorts of horrible, dirty jobs, and then was so. Compared to him, I've had a very easy life.
Well, you definitely make it sound glamorous, but behind that, we all know there's a huge amount of hard work. And thank you for joining me today.
No, it's been good.
It's been a pleasure, and again, connected with somebody and shared some great stories, and again, you've smiled for over an hour. In a modest way, you're connected to some of the most successful people in the world. Somehow you've got them in your phone book, and you're able to keep your feet on the ground. So that's definitely a really good lesson for people out there that want to make a career at doing something that they enjoy. Kevin, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Been fun.